Welcome to episode 2 of We'll Bring the Popcorn. I'm Brad. He's still Josh. And we want to start off this episode by thanking everybody for tuning in to episode 1. Anybody who watched on YouTube, who shared, who listened on the audio podcast, we appreciate all of you, and we thank you for tuning into our little show.
Absolutely. All the feedback I got was awesome. A lot of positive things. We thank everybody for that. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Marvel's Echo, the new series that just dropped on Disney Plus, as well as a review of Jason Statham's new film, The Beekeeper, which we both went and saw this past week as well, and we'll be giving you that review later on. But one of the things I wanted to start talking about this week was the news story that broke from the world of Star Wars. So Star Wars, obviously super huge franchise. The Mandalorian and Grogu has been announced as a film. I know there was some talk about potentially season 4 Mandalorian coming next after Ahsoka dropped, but it looks like they're going to jump right into doing a film. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I'm interested. I've loved The Mandalorian so far. I've watched it with my kids now. They've gotten into it. It's interesting that they're going film instead of right into season 4. You know, they didn't really say if season 4 is not happening, if it will happen after the movie, or if they're just focusing. But, you know, it kind of makes sense because Star Wars, it's been quite a few years now since we've had a proper Star Wars film. You know, the sequel trilogy kind of had some mixed reviews from everybody.
For sure.
We enjoyed it overall, and it had its faults and issues, but we enjoyed it. So, you know, it is about time that they start putting some more movies out, but it was definitely unexpected.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Mandalorian has blown up huge. It's like a very, well-loved, well-respected, kind of niche in the TV world now. So like the first 3 seasons were among the highest watched shows on anything non-cable television. And they've even started putting some of the shows on like ABC here with like some episodes dropping during the writer's strike on, regular television, which is awesome. Just shows how popular it's become. But yeah, to kind of transition into a film now, I know they're trying to make this whole connected TV Star Wars universe, tying in like Ahsoka and things like that. It's going to be real fun to see like the story that they want to telling. There's not anything so far as, a plot for the film or anything yet, but I think you could kind of see where it's going to pick up with how season 3 of The Mandalorian left off. We're not going to spoil it. Go watch it if you haven't. The show is awesome. If you haven't, why haven't you watched it yet? I mean, it's a ton of fun. I love the show. The movie's going to be great. It also ties into another announcement that they made that Ahsoka Season 2 has officially been greenlit.
Yeah, very quietly, just kind of put at the end of the press release from Mandalorian Grogu to say that, hey, oh yeah, Ahsoka Season 2 will be going to production as well. Like, okay. We all kind of expected. If you haven't watched Ahsoka Season 1, it was fantastic. Go check it out. But it left it open that you knew they were coming back because they also announced that, Dave Filoni would be doing a movie that kind of wraps up the Ahsoka Mandalorian story. So that's kind of why it was a little more surprising, too, that the Mandalorian Grogu movie was announced, because we were kind of expecting once they went to the movies, it's for that wrap-up and not for just basically season 4.
Right. And, will this lead to more films at this point? You kind of got to figure there's got to be some big blow off to this story at some point, right? So the way they're making it sound is Mandalorian and Grogu is going to start production this year, come out at some point next year, is probably as well as Ahsoka Season 2. And what's going to happen to those characters in that world after that? Is there going to be another film? Like you said, some kind of grand finale, or what's going to actually serve as the final point in this, interconnected story that they've been telling for the last several years. Like, I'm excited to see where it goes. I feel like they've been continuously knocking it out of the park. It's been endlessly entertaining. And I'm curious to see, like I said, how it all, wraps up.
Yeah, right now it's basically like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni can do no wrong with Star Wars. They've nailed it so far. Doesn't mean everything they'll do is perfect, but from the animated series, Dave Filoni, to everything live action with The Mandalorian, it's been fun.
Yeah, I've loved all of it.
With another story point that we want to touch on, Stranger Things is now filming the final season. Season 5 is in production. I've loved this entire series. It's done extremely well. The storytelling has been just fantastic. And I'm excited to see how it ends. I know the kids kind of seem to be ready to, wrap it up as well. It's been a long time for them going, so it's going to be really interesting to see how this story concludes, especially where we left off with season 4.
Yeah, season 4 was unbelievable. I love how they broke it up into 2 parts, but I even more love the fact that the episodes were like long episodes. Like you got a 2+ hour episode out of it, and there's enough to be a feature film, right? So is season 5 going to be similar? Are there going to be the longer episodes too? I couldn't be more stoked for that. That's going to break all kinds of viewership records when it comes out, because it's going to reach a fever pitch when that season finally drops. And I'm very, very much looking forward to that too. Stranger Things has become one of my favorite TV shows. Yep. Just based on the quality of storytelling, the acting's been incredible. It's such a different type of science fiction show that we really haven't seen a ton of before. But the fact that they're finally getting ready to start season 5 production it makes me so happy, because it was up in the air, right? Because we didn't know what was going to happen with the writer's strike, how long it was going to delay it. I think everybody kind of thought maybe this year we would get season 5. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but next year is going to be crazy when that drops. Like it's just going to be everywhere. It's going to be one of those like must view appointment television watching that we all love. We love those big moments, and that's going to be a huge one, especially knowing that it's going to be the last season. It's
going to be impossible to probably avoid spoilers during that season, so it's one that you're going to have to watch like right away, because people are going to be talking about it.
Absolutely. You're not going to be able to avoid spoilers like at all unless you watch it right away, like you said. And obviously,
don't spoil it.
Doing that. I will never spoil it for you.
You either.
Don't spoil it for us either. But no, like Stranger Things is one of those like pop culture, like it really like it's one of those major pop culture hits, and it's gonna be fun to see where they take it for this last season.
Yep, I'm really looking forward to see how they wrap it up. Like it's sad to see that it's ending, but it's good that it's not going on too long to where it starts to feel like they're dragging things out, that you're just got a bunch of filler. Like I'm like that they're ending on their own terms.
Absolutely, and it's going to be fun to do it. Another film that's coming out, speaking of pop culture hits, I mean, you want to talk about one of the surprise top movies from last year and the year prior, it was Top Gun Maverick, right? So Top Gun Maverick was huge. It was everywhere. It made a ton of money. To the surprise of some, maybe, but not to the surprise of a lot of people as well who just love the original. But they actually announced the Top Gun 3 is now in the works too, and like the main cast from Top Gun Maverick are all coming back, which is very exciting, I think. I don't know what story they could possibly tell, but I'm here for it.
Yeah. I mean, Top Gun Maverick, like, it was such a splendor to watch in theaters, from just the feeling that's one of those movies where I hadn't felt like that in a long time when I watch a movie. The exhilaration, because they filmed everything that they possibly could in actual fighter planes. They're doing these maneuvers. They've got cameras attached to actual planes doing it. Like, it was so exciting. Like, story-wise, it was similar to the first one. They changed, they upped it, did some different things, but it was such an exhilarating film to watch. Like, I don't know really what they could do with Top Gun 3, but I'll be there to watch it.
Absolutely. And we know Tom Cruise. If you know anything about how Tom Cruise makes his films, he's hardcore, man. Mm-hmm. Like he gets super into it. He still does all his own stunts, from what I understand, which is insane.
I mean, he was flying all of his own planes there.
Right. Like, given how long Tom Cruise has been making films. I mean, Tom Cruise has been making films for a long, long time, and the man still like just dedicates himself to his roles and like does all the stunts, does all the prep work. It's really a marvel to see, like a man just lose himself in these roles like he has, because he does the same for Mission Impossible.
Yeah, he's dedicated to the art of cinema, of giving audiences something spectacular, and he is willing to do whatever he has to do with his body, whatever else, hanging off the side of a plane, hanging from the side of a cliff, riding a motorcycle off a cliff. Like, he's committed to giving you a splendor in film, regardless of what you think of him personally. When he comes as an entertainer, he's just been unbelievable of what he gives audiences.
Absolutely. And like you said, the cast is coming back, so he'll be back. Miles Teller will be back. Glenn Powell will be back. So a lot of that chemistry is already established. So I'm definitely, curious to see what the plot of the film is going to be. But that's another one of those, when it's coming out, go to the theater, check it out, get a big old bucket of popcorn, and just
You
enjoy
have
that
to
film.
see that in theaters.
Absolutely. That's definitely one. We're always going to advocate going to the theater anyway, but that is absolutely one of those big blockbuster, go park your butt in a theater and enjoy that film because it's going to be pretty epic, I think.
Very epic. Now, talking about something TV-wise, we got some big news that just dropped, I think, yesterday, that Eldon Henson and Deborah Ann Wool, who played Foggy and Karen in the Netflix Daredevil series and kind of the overall Netflix series there, they are returning for Daredevil Born Again. Now, if you didn't know a lot about the story from Daredevil Born Again, that Marvel is kind of bringing Daredevil and everybody back in their own series here, continue it from the Netflix series, but kind of doing their own thing. Foggy and Karen weren't really involved in that version before the strike. Now, after the strike, they decided that they're going to completely reboot what they were doing. They filmed 3 episodes, I think, and they decided that they just didn't like what they were seeing. And now we've got Foggy and Karen back, and I'm ecstatic about that. We both absolutely love the Daredevil series. We love pretty much everything Netflix did with the Marvel properties there, and these were 2 main characters that really you need to have with Matt and with Daredevil. You need to have those characters around. So I'm glad they changed what they were doing to bringing them back.
You see the big smile on my face. I love Daredevil. So I couldn't be more excited that Foggy and Karen, who were 2 of the 3 most critical characters in that show, arguably, are coming back. I was a little disappointed when they initially announced that they weren't going to be a part of it when they started doing it. I was like, oh man, that sucks. Foggy is like Daredevil's best friend. Like they're literally law firm partners. Like Nelson and Murdoch, attorneys at law, was a thing, right?
We randomly finding ourselves saying Foggy.
Yeah, the ringtone.
Ringtone to each other from Daredevil.
It was so good, right? But and now that they're rebooting it and restarting it again from scratch, I mean, take that information what you will. They weren't confident in the story they were telling originally. They weren't too thrilled with everything there. To their credit, they're saying, you know what, like we're at a point now where we're going to be rebooting things anyway, restarting, working on these projects anyway. Let's just scrap it and start over and kind of get a little more stability in our TV properties, right? So getting these 2 on board is huge, and I couldn't be more happy about it.
And you've got someone from the Punisher series is helping be the showrunner now. So, I mean, the Punisher series was great as well. So it's good to see that, we all kind of know that while we've enjoyed it the last couple phases and things of Marvel, it's been a little rockier than the Infinity Saga was. And so they have announced that they're trying to cut back. They're trying to make sure they're focusing on the quality over the quantity.
Sure.
And so I'm really excited to see what Daredevil Born Again brings us.
Yeah, and to your point, we're literally only getting 1 Marvel film this year. That's it, and it's Deadpool. Like that, there's nothing else film-wise coming out from Marvel this year. So they're kind of pumping the brakes, which I think is probably a good idea to kind of ease off the gas a little bit, just to kind of catch your breath and kind of focus on telling better, more coherent stories that are connected well. Because to your point, Phase 5's been kind of a jumbled mess. Like trying to establish new characters, I get that, but it doesn't all feel as, in my opinion, hasn't felt as important to stay watching everything to make sure it's connected and picking up on things. It's been a little bit of a jumbled mess, but it does feel like they're trying to right the ship, as it were, to start telling a more coherent story that's all building to something. We know it's building to something. If you pay attention, to press releases and things like that where they've talked about, okay, here's where we envision the rest of Phase 5 going into Phase 6 and what that's going to entail. And it seems like they're trying to line it all up again a little better to make it feel connected and tell these better stories. And I'm looking forward to that. But to your point, yeah, they're definitely slowing down for this year at least, just to kind of collectively catch your breath, because they have things in the can that they can release.
Yeah, and they're also scrambling a little bit right now because of Jonathan Majors. He was found guilty. They've already dropped him, and so now they're trying to figure out, do we continue on with Kang? Do we recast Kang? Kind of what they're doing there. So there's a lot of movement going on with Marvel and the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yep, I'm looking forward to it though.
Yeah.
We love our comics here.
All right, we love Marvel. I said DC. I think they only have one property coming out next or this year as they are going through their reboot.
Now it's kind of tongue in cheek. So let me kind of correct myself. There's more than one Marvel property dropping this year because you do have Madam Web and Kraven the Hunter. Those are actually Sony films and not Disney films. So it's a little facetious of me to say that there's no Marvel movies coming out because technically these are still Marvel characters and Marvel properties, but part of that Disney owned universe. I think that's more of what I meant, but not to say that there aren't any like superhero films or Marvel superhero films, but not the Disney, interconnected MCU stories. So there are, other things coming out, but just the one Disney property.
Yeah, especially because Venom 3, which is also Sony-led with Marvel partnership, so it's not, they're MCU adjacent.
Right, yeah.
They're not officially, but they're a multiverse property now. I'm guessing. I think that's how they're looking at them now. That they're a multiverse. They happen in one of the other universes, so they're connected, but they're disconnected.
Sure. I mean, if you want to talk about interconnected universes, how about all the monster films that have come out? Over the last, I want to say, going back 10 years now. A lot of these like monster movies that are connected between Godzilla, King Kong, things like that. So the next one, the Godzilla Kong New Empire, that movie date just got moved up to March 29th, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's another one that I'm very excited to see, coming out this year as well. When was it supposed to come out before?
I think it's only about a 1 to 2 week bump, but I mean, it can. That's still significant to move up a couple weeks. Either they're feeling more confident about it and they want it to go in a certain time window, or they're not feeling as confident about it. Now, you kind of don't know when those bumps happen exactly what their reasoning is to make that move. But, of course, Godzilla -1 was one of our top films of last year. Absolutely. And, of course, this is completely disconnected from that. That was a Japanese Godzilla movie, and this is the more American blockbuster Godzilla. I think Godzilla's now pink with its glow in it. Weird. So there's a lot of difference. So it's not connected to -1, but it is in the Godzilla monster universe. I'm curious to see how it is, even if it's just a big over-the-top movie that we can enjoy just turning our brains off and watching, which is more kind of what I'm expecting from it. But,
sure.
Godzilla -1 pleasantly surprised me. Maybe this will too.
You never know, right? The trailers will only tell you so much of the story. Sometimes they tell you everything, but there's so much of the plot in this film that I'm still not entirely sure, like, what all's going to happen. But you throw Godzilla and King Kong,
I'll watch it
in a film together, either fighting side by side or, fighting against each other. I'll do it every day.
As long as it's not a love story. That'd be weird.
That would be fun. that would actually be a really fun take. Just a whole lot of monster love, a lot of kaiju love.
Yeah. Well, kind of a cult classic that has been around for a while, but we haven't had a new entry in a while. It's a 28 Days Later series. You got 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later. Now we finally have 28 Years Later going into production. So Danny Boyle is going to be returning to direct, and they said it could even span a brand new trilogy after this trilogy is completed. So I've enjoyed those. Those, when they came out, were fresh, new, interesting,
absolutely,
really kind of terrifying in ways. What you see with, you had a Cillian Murphy in them. So I'm really excited to see how they continue this horror franchise after so long.
Yeah, it's been a while since they put anything out for that franchise, but know that they're coming out with essentially 28 years later, which kind of feels like how long it's been since they put them out. But I mean, to your point, yeah, those were the terrifying zombies, right? Those were the zombies that weren't necessarily the classic, walk real slow and you can get away kind of zombies. It's more like how you would probably imagine actual zombies being, right? So I mean, it's gonna be fun. Like I want to see what they do with it. I don't know how I feel about it becoming a trilogy at this point, because it kind of feels like this is the third film in an already established trilogy, but it's going to branch off and establish something else. I don't know. I'm going to reserve judgment until I see more about it. But
especially with how long it's taken to complete this first trilogy, what are they really looking to set up? Like, are we going to get a proper end to this first trilogy when they're trying to set up more? I think that's the only thing that can cause me a pause, is like, you want to make sure that you're ending this first trilogy properly.
Yeah, of course.
Well, leaving yourself open if you want to do more, but not making it kind of how The Walking Dead did, to leave that stuff open where characters just disappeared. And like, oh, we're bringing them back now 6 years later to do a new series. Like, you want there to be a good flow to how they set up the new thing without it affecting the old.
Yeah, so all you Walking Dead fans, please leave your angry comments at Brad in the video below.
There's a lot of them out there.
There are a lot.
We were Walking Dead fans, so I can see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But, we're both looking forward to, I think, seeing that whenever it does drop as well. I imagine sometime in 2025. So
I don't think they set a timeline for when that's going to come out, but still, I think with everything with the writer strike, is still has the studios trying to figure out exactly how they can layer and put out all these different TV shows and movies they need to catch up to, along with all the new ones that they're putting into production.
Sure. Yeah. So I think now is as good a time as any to jump into our TV review of the week. It is Marvel's Echo. It just dropped on Disney Plus Thursday. All 5 episodes dropped at once, so you can check it out now if you haven't. So in our reviews, we're going to give kind of an overview of the show without diving into any of the spoilery bits. So these are safe to watch. We won't talk about, too much of the plot and specific Easter eggs and things like that. So I think we could just talk about how we enjoyed the show. How did you feel about it?
Overall, I enjoyed it. I thought they did a good job. There was, it kind of tried to replicate the Marvel Netflix kind of feel. You got the grittier street level type of hero feel to it. I love the character, created by David Mack in the comics. It's had a great run in the comics, and he's a fantastic artist. If you don't know him, go look him up. He does watercolors, a lot of other stuff. Fantastic artist. But with Echo, like we were introduced to her in the Hawkeye series. Yep. And so we got a brief introduction to her, and then this series was kind of giving us a look back and a look currently at where she's at. But overall, I enjoyed it. The only thing that I wanted was more of it. I mean, it's only 5 episodes, so it feels like, if we had 5 more or even a couple more, we could have had just more. Like, I just wanted more of it.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like it being more compact actually helped it, I think, because it was kind of a clear and concise story. I mean, the first episode is a lot of recap of what happened in Hawkeye and a lot of her background. So for those of you who don't know, Echo is actually Marvel's first deaf character. She's also of indigenous descent from specifically the Choctaw tribe in Oklahoma. And, what I've really enjoyed, being a person who is hard of hearing myself, like, just the way they told, like, some of the fight scenes from her perspective, really, like, turning down the volume almost completely off, and in cases completely off, to kind of experience the fight through, like, her way of seeing things, because she can't hear, people approaching her. She kind of has to sense it, right? So it does a really good job of telling and giving that kind of perspective, and it forces you to actually watch the show. This isn't one of those shows that you can really just throw on the background and kind of get the gist of what they're doing. You have to, in a lot of cases, sit down and pay attention. To their credit, they do a great job of that.
Yeah, and I think, like, I love behind the scenes stuff too. So I love to hear that, because the actress is actually deaf, who plays her. So there was an article that came out that most of the cast and crew learned American Sign Language so they could communicate with her. And so I love that. And back to your point, that I did love that aspect of, let's drop it down, let's lose the volume, this is how the conversation is to her, this is how the fight is to her. She's not hearing, she's not aware of all the stuff. And it really grounds you into, all right, this is how this character is. It's kind of the same as with Daredevil when they show you that he can't see, and you can feel from his perspective of how he's listening and everything else there. Well, with here, everything is visual with her. She has to see people signing, trying to read lips. She has to be aware with her eyes all around her because she cannot hear what's going on.
Yeah, and they do a great job of, laying all of that out and showing her using that to her advantage too, because she uses other people's senses against them too. It's actually a pretty smart way of shooting these types of scenes for this type of character. It's just a lot of fun, and to your point, a really well told story in such a short amount of time, right? So, with her ties into, like, to your point, that street level type, setting where it's your characters like Daredevil, like Kingpin, who's a major player in this series as well, and leading into what is eventually going to be Daredevil Born Again, which is the next series that kind of continues this story. Like, they have a lot of those Netflix elements that you already know. So if you're familiar with those characters and that story, they do a pretty good job of, letting you know that that's actually canon. Spoiler. That's probably the one spoiler I'll give, is that it makes a lot of that actually canon. And it has, in my opinion, just from one of the things that I really loved about the Netflix show is one fight scene in particular, and we get it in the first episode, is the one continuous shot fight scene that takes place over Daredevil. Like 5 minutes. That's from that Daredevil type of shooting, and it's so cool. I love that. I think it was brilliant at the time that they did it in Daredevil, and I'm glad they brought it back for this. But it kind of comes with a little bit of a warning for those of you with kids. It is very graphic and very violent. Definitely not one to probably watch around the kids, but it's rated TVMA for a reason. So it does get a lot more violent and graphic from that sense than pretty much all of these other Disney Marvel properties up to this point.
And I got to say, give me all the Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin that you can give me. Like, he Absolutely. Is, in the Ben Affleck Daredevil, we got Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin, which, rest his soul and everything. He was a great actor, fantastic actor. That was more sillier. Vincent gave us this dark, gritty, insane Kingpin, and he's been absolutely brilliant. So to have him back into Echo here, you reprise it in Hawkeye, you're getting much more deeper into it. We're getting connections to the Netflix versions of him. Like, he is so fantastic as that character.
Yeah, and I hope he sticks around for a long time, and it kind of seems like he will. So
he seems to absolutely love it. Like, he has been pushing for it to come back. He is always posting updates about Born Again. Like, he really loves to play this character.
And that's a lot of fun to see, because he does such a good job of it, and I'm excited to see what all he does moving forward. Because, like I said, not to play spoilers, but it does set up some stuff for the next iteration of, like you said, that story, Daredevil Born Again, which is coming out next year, which I can't be more excited about.
Yeah, so make sure after episode 5, you pay attention to, it's about not exactly mid-credit, but there is a bonus scene after episode 5 that does set up some more future when it comes to these characters. So make sure you look out for that.
Absolutely.
But overall, Echo, really enjoyed the series. Like, when I said that I wanted more, is because I just wanted to see more of her. I wanted to see more of her family, her story of where she's going, where she's been since Hawkeye. I just wanted more of it, just because I enjoyed getting lost in this world, getting to know some about her ancestors and where her powers come, because they've altered that a bit from the comics of what kind of abilities and power she has. I just wanted to see more. Like, I think they did a good job. I think this was the first Marvel Spotlight series that are meant to be shorter, smaller, because I don't even know if we're going to get a season 2 of it or not.
Right.
I think it was initially with these Spotlight are meant to be more one-off stuff, but I would love to see more of Echo. I want to see more of her in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, and it's really good mixing of action and like family drama, because it talks about how she wound up being associated with Kingpin to begin with, right? So they touch a little bit of it in Hawkeye, but they really dive into it in this series, which they do a really good job of playing the family dynamic into the heart of the show, which is what it's really about. So they did a great job with that. Like you said, the whole Marvel Spotlight for those that don't know, is kind of a fringe. It's connected, but it's not really connected. I think they call it like it's a horrible way of describing it, but they call it like not essential viewing. Like you don't have to have seen, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness to understand what's going on in this show.
Yeah.
You probably needed to see Hawkeye just for an intro, but even the first episode does a pretty good job of filling in
Does a pretty good
what
recap.
happened in Hawkeye to kind of establish who she was here. So they do a good job in that first episode. But to your point, it could have been maybe 2 or 3 episodes longer and still would have been really good. But in my opinion, I'm glad they kept it 5 episodes.
Yeah.
Like they wrapped the story up pretty nicely in a bow. Like outside of the first episode, it's just jam packed. 4 episodes after that of just action and stories, and just does a really good job of not overstaying its welcome.
Yeah, we definitely recommend checking out Echo. You can see all 5 episodes on Disney Plus, and we both really enjoyed it. If you're a Marvel fan, it's probably already viewing that you planned on doing. If you're not a Marvel fan, and check it out and see what you think about it. Like it's like you said, it's connected, but it's disconnected, and it's kind of its own thing, and it was really enjoyable. I want to do a quick little recap with For All Mankind. So I know Josh hasn't seen it. This is a alternate history space sci-fi series on Apple TV Plus. The season 4 finale just came out last week. It's one of my favorite shows out there. It's been fantastic from beginning to end. It gets very technical with details, but if you're a sci-fi, space, alternate history type of person, because it's telling you, what if we didn't stop the space race? What if Russia and the United States and everybody was still continued to go after space, colonizing the moon, Mars, space stations? It's really telling you this what if type of scenario, that what would happen if we never stopped. And brilliantly acted. It's tons of surprises. Really great show. I highly recommend you checking out if you haven't. All 4 seasons streaming now on Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, I definitely want to check it out, but I know you've been kind of talking it up quite a bit, and I definitely want to check it out and watch it. So yeah, absolutely check it out on Apple TV Plus.
Great series. Moving on to our film review for this week, we checked out David Ayer's The Beekeeper. So this stars Jason Statham as Adam Clay, who is a beekeeper, who we come to find out he's a former deep military operative who is brought out of retirement when something terrible happened to someone around him. Kind of going into it, most Jason Statham films, you kind of know what you're getting. You're going to get some great action.
Absolutely.
Story-wise, it could have been tighter and cleaner, but I will say that I was entertained from beginning to end. It had some silly stuff. It had some over top of the stuff. But overall, I cannot say I wasn't entertained by this film.
No, I like to refer to these types of movies as a palate cleanser. Mm-hmm. And that's not a negative by any stretch of the imagination. So a lot of films, they don't have to have some deeper meaning of life to be entertaining, right? Some films you could just go into a theater, forget your troubles of the world for 2 hours. Yeah, just turn it off and enjoy the film. It's silly, it's over the top. I mean, it's got all of the tropes of your classic, action films. Jason Statham is overpowered as all can be in this
unstoppable
film. Yeah, just an unstoppable killing machine when he goes back into that mode, right? So it's what you're getting from a Jason Statham film. It's not breaking any new ground. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. It's fun. It's got cheesy one-liners. Is it going to be the best film you watch all year? No, probably not going to be the best film you watch all month. But it was one that we both had a fun time watching, and kind of, honestly, you and I we're kind of just laughing at some of the absurdity of the film while we were watching it. That's what those types of films are. They're fun action films that don't really need to walk out of it taking a whole lot away from it, other than the fact that Jason Statham's probably one of the last really, really great action movie stars from that, I don't want to call it bygone era of action films, but he's kind of one of the last guys standing, still making those types of movies.
Yeah. And he said the action was fantastic. Some of it was really, the premise setting it up was ridiculous and other stuff, but the action was really fun to watch. They really did a good job with the action sequences, even if wait, what? What's going on? kind of thing as
Absolutely.
it's happening. Like, okay, I'm just going to watch this and enjoy the absurdity of it. And that's like you said, you have to go into these type of films as you're there, either if you laugh at it sometimes or you're being moved by the action and having a ton of fun with that. That's what these type of films are. It's just ones for you to go turn your brain off and have a good time in the movie theater. And we really love that kind of aspect of going to the movies. Even, going to something that's going to have a much deeper story, that's going to move you emotionally or something else, you still need those palate cleansers of just watching something absurdly over the top action.
Absolutely. And one of the things I was really impressed with, because to be fair, we didn't do a ton of research on the film going into it, was the cast. Like, the cast was really good. They had a lot of well-known actors in the film, which kind of surprised me. It has, the main antagonist of the film is Josh Hutcherson, who, local guy for us, but, obviously PETA from, the Hunger Games franchise. He was just in Five Nights at Freddy's. You had Jeremy Irons. You had Minnie Driver. Like, there was some well-known actors in this film, and that kind of took me by surprise, but it gave me a lot of enjoyment too.
Yeah, because even like Josh Hutcherson, like I think I saw one trailer for The Beekeeper before we went into it. I don't remember seeing him in the trailer at all, so It was surprising to see him show up as a villain, because I think this was one of his first type of bad guy roles that he's done,
and he plays just an unbelievably good spoiled rich kid.
Yeah.
That comes from very obvious money. Like I said, not trying to give away a ton of the plot, but he's a rich business owner, he's coming from money, like a lot of money. And he plays that spoiled, entitled rich kid, can run a business, thinks he's, thinks he's all that, but he,
Yeah.
Jason Statham's coming. So take for that what you will.
I don't want that man coming after me.
Absolutely not.
No.
Especially with what he does in this film. Like I said, we'll always advocate seeing these types of films in the theaters. If you want a good action film in the theater, this is definitely a good candidate for it.
Yep. We recommend checking out The Beekeeper in theaters now.
Absolutely. So with that said, what do we have coming up for this week as far as films coming out, TV shows coming out? Looking ahead to the weekend in releases, there's a film called ISS that is coming up that's getting released about the International Space Station. That is actually a film that we are going to go see and review for our episode next week. I know we've both talked about how much we're looking forward to checking that one out. It looks to be a lot of fun. A film called Bring 'Em to Me is coming out on digital. That is dropping this week, as well as Cult Killer, which...
So kind of a slower, smaller week with films when you're talking about big studio tentpole films or anything else this week, and I think next week as well. Kind of slower, smaller films. But I am interested in checking out ISS because anything space related for me, I love. So to see this kind of horror thriller set in space is going to be interesting to see. But on the digital side, coming to view at home, we have some pretty big titles coming out this week. So probably one of the biggest ones is The Marvels, finally getting the digital release, getting that on sale to purchase. It didn't do as well as it probably should have. We both enjoyed The Marvels. It was fun. It was more lighthearted. A lot of people didn't like it. We thought it was a solid film overall. Like I said, these phases of Marvels had its issues, but we thought The Marvels was fun. If you haven't seen it yet, it's worth, I think, at least checking out once so you can build your own. We're always wanting to make sure everyone gets their own opinion about it. Like, you can listen to what we say, go off of some of it, but in the end, check it out for yourself to see if you actually like it.
Always form your own opinions. Go see it. Don't let anybody tell you, like, oh, this movie's trash, avoid it. Form your own opinion. Go see it anyway. If you want to see it, please make the time to do so.
Yep. Dropping along with The Marvels this week is The Boys in the Boat and Next Goal Wins. Both movies I want to see. One a more serious historical film, and the other being a lighthearted comedy.
Sure.
Looking forward to checking out both of those. We didn't get a chance to see them in theaters. So all three of those will be out for sale digitally on January 16th.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of what we have going on this week that we can look forward to.
Yeah, so one of the things we wanted to do before we wrap up is, if you notice this giant sign behind us that is the centerpiece of our videos here, we'd like to give a shout out to Cornbread Customs. They put this sign together for us before we dropped the first episode, and we couldn't be more proud of how it turned out. It looks amazing. It looks as nice on camera as it does in person. They did a phenomenal job of putting this piece, and we really wanted to give them a shout out. If you go to our YouTube video, if you're watching this video, click the link in the description to check them out. They do a lot of great work. If you want signs made, we definitely could not recommend checking them out enough. They're very reasonably priced, and we're just thoroughly impressed with the work that they did. I mean, this is
fantastic job with it. It's all hand stained wood, so they stained it, custom color stains on the wood. They did a fantastic job. Great value for what they offer. We're so happy with the sign that they made for us.
Major shout out to those guys.
Yeah. So as we mentioned, coming up next week, on next week's episode, we will be reviewing ISS. We will also be diving into the latest season of Marvel's What If. So we're excited to talk about both of those with you on episode 3.
Yeah, and we can't thank you enough for tuning in. Like we said at the beginning of the video, we were very pleased with the feedback we've got from episode 1. We thank you for tuning into this one. Don't forget to check us out on all forms of social media. We're on every social media platform you can think of. We're on YouTube. Check us out at willbringthepopcorn.com. It's kind of a centralized location for all of the things you need to know related to this podcast. Eventually, we'll be having merch up, hopefully soon.
Let us know what kind of merch you want to see.
Absolutely. Leave any ideas. If there's any news stories you thought caught your eye this week as well, comment on them down below. We'd love to see, what you're paying attention to, what you're watching, what you're looking out for. Just don't forget to leave those comments on the videos, and we're pretty good about engaging in conversation about that. Anyway, we'll talk shop with anybody. So if you get a chance, leave a comment, leave a like. We appreciate all of your support and feedback, and we'll be back next week for another episode of We'll Bring the Popcorn. I'm Josh, he's Brad, and we'll see you next week.